Welcome back to The Explainer. So if you've ever built an app, deployed a cloud service, or even just downloaded an open source library, you have definitely relied on one specific license. But look, reading dense legal jargon isn't exactly why you learn to code, right? Well, today we're demystifying the ultimate legal shield for developers and enterprises alike, the Apache 2.0 license. We're going to break down how to use it, what it actually requires of you, and why it is literally the backbone of modern software development.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering Welcome to Apache 2.0, what you can do, the golden rules, patents and protections, Apache versus other licenses, and finally, real-world risks.
All right, Part 1. Welcome to Apache 2.0. 30%. That is a massive chunk, and it represents the percentage of all open source licenses currently in use that are Apache, according to men.io. It is the undisputed heavyweight champ in the permissive licensing space. Honestly, you kind of can't navigate modern software dev without it. It's the silent engine powering the world-changing projects we interact with every single day. Think cloud tools like Kubernetes, the Android operating system in your pocket, and even AI giants like TensorFlow. To see how we got here, let's rewind a bit. Back in 1995, the Apache group released their initial license just to cover a popular web server. Fast forward to 2000, and version 1.1 dropped a super annoying advertising clause that literally forced developers to include attribution in their marketing materials, which was a huge headache for growing businesses. But the real game changer hit in 2004 when the Apache Software Foundation rolled out version 2.0. They brought in explicit patent grants and crystal-clear legal definitions, turning a basic open-source agreement into the rock-solid, business-friendly standard we rely on today. Moving on to Part 2. What you can do. The absolute beauty of Apache 2.0 is its wild flexibility. You are granted enormous freedoms. You can modify the code, bake it into your own proprietary software, and sell it commercially, all without paying a single royalty or licensing fee. Seriously, say you want to build a paid fitness app using an Apache licensed charting library. You can absolutely do that for free. You can distribute copies globally, and you can even sub-license the software under entirely different terms. It's engineered from the ground up to encourage rapid innovation without legal friction slowing you down. Now, the crucial distinction to make here is between permissive licenses and copyleft licenses. Think of a viral copyleft license, like the GPL, as a recipe that forces you to share any new recipe you invent using it. Modifying that code legally locks you into releasing your new changes under those same open source terms. But Apache 2.0, it isn't like that at all. It's highly permissive. It lets your company keep your proprietary modifications, your highly valuable secret sauce, completely closed source. You get all the massive perks of community-developed code with zero risk to your own intellectual property.
Which brings us to Part 3, the golden rules.
So here is easily the biggest question beginners have when they start mixing open source code with their commercial projects. If I download this library and tweak it to make my proprietary app run 50% faster, do I legally have to give that highly customized, optimized code back to the public? The answer is an emphatic no. But, and this is a very big but, you're strictly required to follow a few core attribution rules to stay compliant. And hey, failing to do this doesn't just look bad to the open source community, it legally strips you of your protections. Ignoring these rules is basically inviting a nasty cease and desist letter from the original creators that could bring your entire project to a screeching halt. So what are the rules? Well, first, you have to include a copy of the original copyright notice and the Apache license itself. Second, if the original project includes a text file literally named notice with attribution notes, you must preserve it in your project. And third, which is kind of a unique Apache quirk, you must explicitly state any significant changes you've made to the original files. Usually, just adding a brief comment at the top of the modified source file with the date and what you changed does the trick. You just really need to monitor this closely, especially making sure your automated build tools don't accidentally strip those comments right out.
All right, Part 4, Patents, Trademarks, and Protections.
This is where things get really interesting. One of the most powerful features of Apache 2.0 is how it brilliantly protects the community by stopping patent trolls dead in their tracks. It has this in terra rem provision, which is essentially a legal booby trap. This retaliation clause says that if you decide to suit anyone claiming that the open source software infringes on a patent, your own rights to use that software are instantly and automatically terminated. No grace period, boom, gone. It brilliantly ensures that the ecosystem stays safe and cooperative for everyone.
And beyond that retaliation clause, the license gives you a perpetual worldwide patent grant to keep you legally safe while you build your business. But it also fiercely protects the original creators. It uses strict as-is warranty disclaimers, so you cannot hold contributors liable for any software failures. Furthermore, it explicitly restricts trademark usage. You cannot use the Apache name or their famous multicolored feather logo for your own product branding. So no matter how much you love the code that powers your startup, you gotta keep the feather off your homepage.
Let's shift to Part 5, Apache versus other licenses.
To truly grasp its value, you have to see how Apache perfectly hits the middle ground in the licensing ecosystem. While all the major open-source licenses allow commercial use, their obligations are wildly different. Take the AGPL, for example. Huge compliance burden. Just letting users interact with AGPL software over a network, like hosting it on a back-end cloud server, could trigger a copyleft obligation and force you to open source your entire proprietary application. Both MIT and Apache spare you from that nightmare with zero copyleft obligations. But unlike MIT, Apache actually gives you explicit, undeniable patent protections.
Now, the MIT license is famously loved for being incredibly short, kind of the Wild West of simplicity. But Apache 2.0's dense legal language, it's actually a feature, not a bug. By meticulously defining terms like contributor, licenser, and work, it leaves absolute zero room for ambiguity regarding your patent rights and legal boundaries. It provides that rock-solid legal foundation that enterprise lawyers and startup investors absolutely crave when they're auditing a codebase.
Finally, Part 6, Real-World Risks and Scenarios.
Because here's the reality, even with a perfectly compliant license, inheriting open source code fundamentally means inheriting open source risk. We've seen this play out with catastrophic events like the Log4 shell vulnerability or the XCUtils backdoor. See, permissive licenses like Apache make software so frictionless to adopt that a single useful component spreads like wildfire. It ends up buried deep inside thousands of enterprise environments, meaning a single flaw in an obscure logging library can instantly turn into a global, frantic crisis for cybersecurity teams.
Your proprietary software is highly vulnerable to transitive dependencies. This means you might not import a vulnerable Apache license library directly, but a completely different tool you rely on does, hiding that risk deep down in your software graph. You also have to deal with volunteer patch lags, where community maintainers might take weeks to fix a critical flaw. To survive this, you literally have to monitor your supply chain using automated checks in your deployment pipelines. You need software bill of materials, or SBOMs, which are basically just comprehensive ingredient lists of everything running in your production environment.
Because having a great, highly permissive license is really just step one in secure modern development. So, as open source software becomes the absolute foundation of your proprietary products, I want to leave you with this. Are you actively monitoring the hidden dependencies living inside those licenses? Understanding the incredible freedoms, the strict legal obligations, and the practical security risks of Apache 2.0 ensures you can innovate incredibly fast. The freedoms of this license empower you to build the future, but only if you are fully prepared to secure it. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and we'll see you in the next one.